reminder. I don't ever object to being reminded.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't need all of the early discussion.
yeah.
Right.
Having that last recording when you,
Oh, I mean, 31.
you led us through the 5
Maybe,
Uh,
yeah.
You know,
ones, that was great to have
he
on
told me, I
video.
was like,
Good.
man, that's really unfortunate, but I don't feel like I want to say I'm sorry to hear that. Like,
Right.
you know, at that point, maybe 6 months is what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it
know.
may be what he needs. I'm pretty surprised. Yeah.
Get rid of
Okay.
one of the phones in
I
here.
don't know. But I don't know if it's the same in Connecticut, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna change this.
He's really in Massachusetts, but he goes to New London for work a lot, so that's why he's kind of renting the room, like as an in between, just about to crash.
Well, Joanne is not coming today.
Oh, I guess not, right?
On the screen. Have you not had those ventilator patients before?
No. These are, they're long-term vent patients. They're not acutely sick.
Uh,
I mean, they're people who like went to the ICU, got put on a ventilator, and now it's months and for some of them years later, and we can't get them off the ventilator.
Oh.
So, you know, they're stuck on a breathing machine, and either they don't want to come off it, you know, they're still have their faculties, right?
Yep.
Or their family doesn't want to take them off it. You know. And a lot of it's pretty tragic stuff, you know. One of them is someone who passed out, face down in water, you know, so basically just brain dead.
Yeah.
You know, but their body is still functioning. And family doesn't want to let go.
oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so it's
Don't get me started on that.
yeah.
Okay, well, I guess Richard and Nick are absent as usual. Good thing I'm recording. Anybody arrive with a question? Not really.
Maybe not a question, just an observation. I
Mhm.
find practicing 5 is much easier than doing 5 after doing 1 through 4. I don't know why that is. I have a hard time, I think, transitioning from the movements in 1 through 4 to doing a C curve. The spine. When I do the flow, it seems like they really need like 4 or 5 repetitions to like stop doing the quad squat and quad fold and like really get it in there.
Um, uh, Based on my somewhat limited experience, I would say that's not unusual.
Okay.
Getting used to 5 just seems to take a while.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll get better.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear you're practicing.
Sure.
Yeah, related to that, yeah, I don't know quite. I know you're not going down in 5, but your knees still flex a little bit as you go to the C curve.
Yes,
A little bit.
and there is a slight bend into a quad fold, not a quad squat. So yes, there is a little bend of the knees, a little bend of the quad.
So just as you're thinking about, without doing that, but you're thinking about bending the arms a little. So even though you're making a large spherical movement, the amount of the bend is small. So the arms are only bending a little and then straightening that little. The qua and the knees also will bend a little and straighten a little, so that those two go with each other. Okay.
Yeah, I guess my other thing that I'm a little fuzzy with is what's really happening with your shoulders and your elbows and the height of those things as you're doing it. I feel like I'm just kind of mushy there. And
Well, your shoulders are staying down and your elbows are pointing towards the earth.
okay. So there's not a lot of motion. Yeah. I feel like there should be some kind of movement all the time, everywhere, but
Well, there is a little, but it's smaller. And your transition points are different, and that's probably part of what Adam's finding difficult. Is in all the other postures, the transition point is roughly top and bottom. Here it's middle and side middle.
Hmm.
So it's you have to change your focus on where the transition points are.
Okay. The transition point coincides with when you finish exhaling and start inhaling, and vice versa.
Yes, and when you finish bending and when you finish straightening.
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Bill?
I think a little demonstration would be good.
Oh, God.
I mean, I'd like to, or at least point it out when we're doing that,
No.
when we're doing it together or when we're doing it. Yeah.
Well, we're probably not going to be doing this at all today, so.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we should just amend
I'll
it on
do
it.
a demonstration, okay. So we're doing 4. And 4 is also basically a quafold with the C curve. But then you condense and continue to bend into that first movement. And then you maintain that condense, which is why the bend and straighten are smaller, because they are within the remaining 70%, not the full 100% or 70% of 100%. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything
Thank
from you,
you.
Joanne?
No, thank you. Yep, I found the recording helpful. Yep.
Okay. So we're going to look now at step number 5 in Taoist breathing, upper back breathing. We've worked on the diaphragm and belly, which classically are called belly breathing, and breathing into the sides and breathing into the lower back and the kidneys. And now we're going to move into the upper back. Now this may be counterintuitive to many people, especially if they have done a lot of yoga. There are two ways that people can breathe with their chest. One is that they puff their chest out, and that is so that as the lungs expand, the chest will move with them. Upper back breathing is different. You do not puff the front of the chest out. It is not a military chest. It's not a yoga chest. It is where the front of the chest completely relaxes and drops so the chi from the crown of your head can drop down into your belly. So the movement is backwards. The upper back expands as your lungs expand back towards your spine. The lungs are a pretty mindless device. They're a bag, and it will go in whatever direction when you fill it with air. There are three ways that it can go. One way is that you could have the back stay still and the chest go forward and back. That's your military breathing, yoga breathing, or some gymnastics breathing. The second way it can happen is that from the middle of the lungs, you can have the lungs expand backwards and forwards at the same time, and then come back to the middle. That is also not what we are going to be doing. In the upper back breathing, we're going to be doing the front of your chest. That's interesting. We're actually going to have it that the front of your chest is going to stay still, and your lungs are going to move backwards. Part of what this is going to cause or allow is that the pressure from the lungs coming toward your heart and the pressure of your breathing coming from your belly are going to end up coming right into the heart and massaging it. This is something that has been done in Taoist breathing that is not done in yoga breathing. But there's another thing. Most people's breathing is pretty poor in general. Matter of fact, there was a report a couple of years ago that 80% of people in this country do not breathe well. That's a pretty significant percentage. When you breathe with the upper back, it makes it a lot easier to recognize if you're breathing well or not. If you watch most people, they usually have about a 4-second breath. 2 seconds inhale, 2 seconds exhale. Maybe they have a 6-second breath. That's actually bad breathing. You know, the joke, it's as good as a monkey could do, which physically is not true, but let's say you're talking about a monkey trying to write mathematical computations. That's what it is the equivalent of. The major purpose of Taoist breathing is not to get more oxygen into your system. You get that anyway. That's the body prize. It's going to happen no matter what else happens, because you're going to breathe or you're going to be dead. So you're getting oxygen into your system, but then the next question becomes how much? When you're doing Taoist breathing, you're practicing until your body understands how to breathe. The other good thing about upper back breathing is that if there's a habit that's actually causing a small amount of movement to happen in the vertebra of your upper back and your neck, the overwhelming complaint of the American population and actually in Europe as well, is neck, back, and upper shoulder pain. When you breathe with the upper back, it can cause your shoulder blades to move a slight amount. The pressure of breathing with your upper back actually goes around your shoulder blades and gives them the environment to move better. Also, upper back breathing stretches the muscles that are coming down from your trapezius in your shoulder. And when the vertebra of the upper part of your back start having problems, it's only a matter of time before they start shutting down the vertebra in your neck and start getting problems with neck pain. So breathing with the upper back starts opening up the vertebra of your spine. If you talk about breathing in general, the classic Taoist position was that if someone can comfortably have a 10-second breath, 5 seconds inhale, 5 seconds exhale, they feel sorry for them. Same way, if you see a dog crippled in the street, that you feel sorry for the dog, because somehow you have lost a primary thing of being a human being. So they try to go for a minimum 10-second breath. But they found two other things. If you practice breathing, you can get to a point where you can comfortably do a 30-second breath. And at that point, there is a major physiological change that happens in your body. If you can go to where you can do a 1-minute breath, there is a massive physiological change that can happen in your body. And in all the longevity regeneration techniques in Taoism, this is one of the things that they do. They get you up to an 8-minute breath. And don't think it happens that quickly, of course, but with practice, you can do it in order to have a really deep breath. It does not happen just from your lungs. The blood circulation your entire body is going to have to update to make it possible. And doing something better than a 4 to 6 minute breath is probably a good idea. And if you are doing the movements of God's plane in the clouds in a very smooth and easy fashion, you could easily end up with a 4 to 6 minute breath. Another thing is that the breathing that benefits your brain is actually upper lung breathing. Breathing in the very top of the bag directly affects your brain. But upper back breathing actually kickstarts that to a certain degree, because in your back, it actually moves your subclavian and it gets what's in your neck going into your brain. That's also causes a greater amount of breath oxygen in the chi that's inside the breath going into the brain. So that's part of why you do upper back breathing. So I want us just to breathe for a moment here. So it's really important that you have pretty good posture. So we can do this sitting. You don't need to stand, but you do need to make sure that your back is straight and have your feet flat on the floor. Have a sense of your body extending upward, not in any stiff way, but relaxed. And just begin with belly breathing. Feel your diaphragm moving. Feel your belly moving.
And I might say that I highly recommend not wearing pants with a tight waist when you're trying to do this. Actually kind of gets in the way. So an elastic waist is highly recommended when you're trying to work on breathing. So really being aware of the diaphragm moving all the way around your body and your belly expanding on the inhale and contracting on the exhale. And then bring your attention to feeling your side breathing. And remember, there are 3 different levels. So first, be aware of the lower area, the area of your midriff. And if you have a question about it, you can just gently place your hand on that area and make sure that you feel that moving. Now, that area is pretty easy to feel, so you can probably feel it without touching it, but make sure that that's expanding out and contracting in a little. And then move up to the middle, your lower ribs. And make sure that they're also moving with your breath. And then breathe right up into the armpit. So you want to actually feel that that whole area expands a little bit. And in the armpit, it is very subtle, but you should have some slight movement there. This is particularly important for breathing into the spleen and the liver. And then breathe into your lower back. And at first, just being aware of breathing really clear down to your sacrum. So ideally, there's even a little movement there. And then focusing a little bit higher into your kidneys. Really being aware of breathing into your kidneys. And obviously maintaining everything else that we've gone through at the moment. It's being the level to which hopefully you've been practicing up to this point. And then begin to go on up into the upper back and begin to feel it expand backwards. The chest staying still. And just stay focused on continuing that breath for a moment. Remember that the lungs are mindless. They don't do anything. The breath to fill up your lungs is going to come from your diaphragm and from your belly and your kidneys. It's going to be rising up. But the thing that is important is that they actually have to inflate and deflate. So be aware of all of those parts, all expanding and contracting simultaneously. And allow your breath to slow. Okay, so relax for a moment. So any questions in here? Can you feel the upper back expanding?
Yes, I think of all of what you just brought us through, the one, it's all familiar, except I had not really been aware of or thought of breathing into the sacrum, which is
Aha.
interesting. Somehow. And I think I have a decent handle on breathing into the upper back and everything up to that. So I guess part of my question is the order of it, or how I think about that, but in adding the sacrum in. Am I clear?
No.
Okay. So as we breathe in and we breathe up, we're breathing up and back. Correct?
Actually, Joanne, it's all happening at once.
It's okay. So that's what I'm trying to get a sense of. Is it all happening at once, or is it a process of filling?
No, I was simply taking you through a sequence of awareness, but it should all be happening at once. Yes.
Okay. That answers my question. I understand. Yep. Thanks.
Sure.
I try
When
to
you talk about, when you talk about 60-second breathing or 30-second breathing, is that an inhale and exhale over that? How do you measure your?
Well, a 30-second breath is 15 seconds in and 15 seconds out. Okay. So a 1 minute breath would be 30 seconds in and 30 seconds out. Okay? Are you there, Bill?
Yeah, that was a simple question, but I thank you.
Okay, no.
When I try and focus on adding the elements and not letting the chest rise and do that, it almost feels like there's a lot of tension that comes in the chest from not letting it rise. I mean, is there a level where you just need to relax, and if it rises some, that's okay, while you work on letting that happen less and less?
Yes. You don't want tension in the chest, obviously, or maybe not obviously. So, no, you'd like not to have tension in the chest. Just simply allow it to stay still and focus on expanding the back.
Mhm. Okay.
If, as I was saying, if you've done some other practice where you're used to expanding the chest, then at first it may seem a little counterintuitive, and you have to really focus on letting the chest relax instead of expand.
Mhm.
And if you do, there are people who do yoga and Tai Chi, and they have to really separate and do both kinds of breathing because each has its purpose in that specific practice.
Okay. Thanks. I don't really know what you mean by yoga breathing. I guess I've never done that or experienced that. So, I mean, it sounds like just normal breathing, or is that not? Or is it
So
like-
what is normal breathing?
I don't know. Getting it right now.
So yoga breathing does, and my knowledge of this is not deep, but
Yeah.
my understanding is that the breath does, or the chest does expand. And there's also specific practices where you hold the breath in
Okay.
yoga breathing, neither of which do we do in Taoist breathing.
Okay.
So same as learning two different Tai Chi forms, you have to
Separate that.
separate them and simply look at each one as an individual practice. There's no reason why you can't be able to do both, just not at the same time.
Yeah, I take voice lessons
Uh-huh.
and my teacher, it drives him nuts because I belly breathe almost. I mean, that's my normal now.
Yeah.
Way of breathing. It started when I was running, years that I was running, and it's a belly breathing thing too. But he said, no, you need to, not militarily, but you need to feel your chest. I want to see your chest move.
There you go.
And I have to switch gears to try to do what he wants. I did have a question though about increasing the length of the breath. So I don't time myself necessarily, but when I really work on it, I can extend it. I can feel it extending, and it's usually a function of the balloon, the sac filling more and more. But there's a finite limit to that. Yes. So I can't imagine how I go from, let's say, 20 seconds to 25 seconds to add 10 more seconds when I feel like I'm full of air.
So this
As
becomes,
opposed to, I mean, I don't want to hold it necessarily. Because,
No, you do not.
Yeah.
So this is the point at which you discover that, oh, you could slow down your inhale and your exhale.
Yeah,
So it is learning to be able to adjust that depending on what you're doing.
okay. So just dribbling the air in.
Uh-huh. That may not be a good term to use for it, but yes. It is a matter of learning to allow the breath to slow and not trying to force it to slow. And then to go to those extremes that really Bruce is talking about, because I certainly have not achieved a 4 to 6 minute breath, I'm sorry to say. But my breath is extended far beyond where it was, a few years ago. But it is a matter of getting the breath to slow down, because if you're breathing rapidly, it's going to be short.
Yeah,
And also it's not deep. You're not fully filling the lungs, nor are you getting all of the movement in the rest of your body, which really affects the organs. Because one of the things that Taoist breathing does is it massages the organs, all of them in your body. So, other thoughts or?
So is it a good goal to get your everyday breathing in this mode and extend it? Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
So not just when we're practicing. So,
Exactly.
yeah. And I'm just curious, David, what would you say your breath is now?
Well, my normal breath during the day when I'm not thinking about it, probably a 30 to 40 second breath. When I'm meditating, I get up to a minute. When you're meditating, it's much easier to allow it to slow, and it's a good place to practice the breath. But
And like if 80% of people have bad, it's not exactly bad breath, but bad breathing is
that breathing, so that
that's like under 10 seconds. I mean, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly. So you want to try to get to at least a 10-second breath. Shall we go on?
Sure.
So breathing should open your body up from the inside. You can breathe, and when you exhale or inhale, it doesn't matter on the second half of your breath cycle, or which half of your breath cycle, it should cause everything in your body to shrink a bit, like a balloon, where the air comes out and the balloon deflates. So breathing can push or pull depending on whether it's opening or closing. You can use that to push or pull blood through your veins and arteries. You can use it to move every fluid in your body. When you get just the right edge of how the internal pressure in your breathing mechanism is functioning, you can use it to move your limbs. It can move your interstitial fluid. You can cause your breathing to open and close your joints, because breathing is a primary body mechanism. So what is the biggest thing your breathing does from a Taoist point of view? And it is the biggest opening and closing exercise because everything gets bigger and everything gets smaller. But the opening and closing exercises can be linked to every other system in your body. If you can make the link, if you can make the link. So we can look at this a little bit. What you have to do this is to understand, oh, I see what I did. To understand the difference between most breathing methods, which are about taking in air and sending out air, or taking in air and holding it. And this is not a Taoist method. So I want you to just take your hands out to the side, and for a moment, just breathe with your hands out there and feel what happens. Just ordinary breathing. Let your stomach, your belly get bigger when you inhale and then contract. And just feel, what does your breathing do? And now just place your palms on your thighs. Make sure you keep your armpits open. And now inhale, and from that sense of opening your belly, get the blood to start flowing down your arms to your fingertips. And when you exhale, pull the blood back up your arm. Blood is always going away from your heart and into your heart. But really just try to feel your breathing, causing the blood to flow. There are breathing techniques where you can make the opening and closing happen simultaneously. But the natural way breathing happens in the body is that it does one and then it does the other. And now just feel your body begin to fill up from the air. Not just to fill up, I want you to have a sense that you shrink it a bit and then expand. And maybe feel it move from your elbow to your fingertips and your fingertips to your elbow. And now bring your hands up so they're roughly neck height. And you're going to bend and extend your arms as you breathe. So you're going to bend as you inhale. And as you exhale, extend. And just keep doing that Use the breath going out to your belly to start moving through your hands. So it opens your arms out. I want you to use the inhale and exhale to cause your arms to bend and stretch, to retract and extend. You're doing ordinary breathing, then it's very simple. You're just doing as you inhale, your arm bends, and as you exhale, it extends out. And if you're, well, we're not going to be doing reverse breathing at the moment, so that's all right. As you inhale, let your hand come in. And as you exhale, let it push your hand out. Really try to get your breath to link to this movement. So that the movement is coming from your breath. And as you're practicing, just listen to a few other things. People have pain. And the basic reason you get pain is in some way, shape, manner, or form, the chi, the energy of your body, is not expressing itself through that area. There is a well-known phrase in Chinese medicine. When you have pain or you have diminished function, your chi doesn't go through that place in some way or another. When chi goes through a place in your body smoothly, you don't have pain. That's pretty much what it comes down to. This is not an absolute, but most of the time it holds. When you have a vertebra that's pressing on your spinal cord nerve, there is no chi going through that spot in your body, so you get pain. But then if you happen to have pain right now somewhere in your arm, begin to focus. Not only do you have to get your breath to extend your arm and bring it back, but you want to get your breath to smoothly move through the pain. And if you make it move through the pain on the way out and on the way in, then the pain will probably begin to go away. And there are a lot of reasons why your whole body could be in pain. All kinds of diseases will do it. Even the flu will do it. Then clearly your breath has to go to every part of your body. The basic method of sensitive peripheral breathing in Taoism is actually designed to get the breath to go through every part of your body. It is designed to get it to go to your extremities, and from your extremities to your lower dantian. But in the process of that breath moving through, wherever you have a spot with pain, you have to relax the feeling of that movement in your breath enough so that you slowly go through it very gently, and you will begin to open it up. But keep trying to get this to go through your pain. And that's good. It is the fact that somehow you have to get your breath to be telling your arms to move. Not that you're moving your arms and you're trying to get your breath to coordinate with it. That's an earlier stage. You're trying to get your breathing to actually be the signal that tells your arms to move. Now, from another point of view, I don't really like the word ego, because in China, the word ego doesn't mean what it means in the West or what it means in India. Because the term ego in India is not about you have an agenda or you have fixed on something or you have a point of view that seems to squeeze other people out, which is what ego means in the West. Excuse me. That's the practical definition of it. Indeed, if you have an ego, it simply means you're not enlightened and you are separated from the enlightened state in some way. In China, it's not so different. Ego is what causes separation rather than everything is linked together. But it's not what necessarily means in the West, where having an ego can just mean you have a point of view, but actually, it actually isn't about you have a point of view. It is that the other person feels as though it's pushing their point of view to the side. They don't like that, and therefore you have an ego. But here we're just talking about separation, that your breath moving through your body is somehow going to be that which tells your body to move. And when you do that, there's a very funny thing. If anybody has a sense of, I am doing this, an honest sense, not just a convenience of language, but as a reality, I'm doing this. From the Eastern point of view of meditation and spirituality, your ego is at work. You are strengthening and reinforcing your ego. But if you just have the sense of my breath is moving me, or one thing that is going to happen is that your sense of who you are is not the same thing as your breath. Who you are is not your hair or your toenails. There is something a lot bigger inside you that makes you think who you are. So in one sense now, your ego can simply just take a rest, and everybody can use letting the ego take a rest. Because an ego is the source of a huge amount of stress, or it's what makes a stressful situation damaging to you. In the situation, it is more how you take it, and your ego makes sure you take it in a way that is damaging to you, because you're fighting against what you think you are and what you want, and whatever is going on in the world, most of which most people know they can't do a whole lot about. So we're sitting down now, and I want you to just use the movements of movement 3. So also I want you, and I'll just have a side note here. One of the interesting things about gods is that almost everything in gods can be done in at least 2 different ways or more, depending on what you are focusing on, what you want to accomplish. So what I want you to do is just to do the movements in effect, the movements of the arms. And I want you to actually now think of inhaling as you circle to 3 o'clock and then exhale. And then inhale to 6 and exhale at 9 and inhale to 12. So I'm not going to go into the differences in the breathing internally just at the moment, but really think about this as an exercise, aligning the breath with the movement. So you're going to be bending your arms as you inhale and straightening them as you exhale. Okay? So just do that. And you can do it seated because I don't necessarily want you to focus on the legs at the moment. Of course, eventually we're going to have to open and close the legs too. But right at the moment, just using the arms and the upper body. So you want to really recognize that your belly filling up and your breathing opening is causing your arms to open. That's where it's coming from. You won't get the feeling as though your arms are moving without you, where it just feels like your arms are just going, and it's as though it's coming from Mars or some other place. Now, what this does is that if you can get the breath to do this, your mind can relax a lot. There are two things you can't stop doing: breathing and pumping blood. You have no choice. And breathing is an easier thing to work with than the blood, just easier. So now stand up and go into the fuller movement of 3. Interesting enough, one of the reasons why we're using movement 3 is that in this way is it is actually the easiest and clearest way of linking your hands and arms with your breath. Remember, as you bend down, don't go too low, because what can happen is your attention goes to your back and not to what you're doing with your arms. So the first stage is that you don't focus on your legs. Just focus on connecting your arms and the breath. Let the breath be smooth as you do the movement. And as your breath becomes smoother, it's not causing your emotions to release their inner volcanoes. You can start very gently and very softly, looking at how does the breath become the means through which your arms extend and bend back. You can reverse direction anytime you want to, just try to kind of keep it even. Balance the two sides. We live in an arm culture, not a leg culture. Most people, as a habit, don't open doors with their feet. And as a matter of fact, a lot of other places they do. Most people don't pick up things with their feet and do whatever with it. If you want to start getting greater contact with your legs, a little game you can play is just take a pen or a pencil or a stick, and with your feet, try to pick it up and move it. Doesn't matter what it is. Just keep your movement at a size where the breathing and the extending and the bending of your arms are absolutely kept together. And if you find that at some point in one of the movements you stop for a second and freeze, what that tells you is, nope, I'm sorry, the movement is too big because you don't have the coordination together yet. One of the reasons we're using number 3 is that the movements of the arms are relatively small. Must become very obvious in the other movements that your arms are going to be in motions a lot bigger, longer, and therefore a little bit trickier to coordinate. So relax for a moment. Then you can sit down. So do you have some sense of the breath moving your arms and your body?
It was easier sitting. I did that.
Uh-huh.
I actually found it a little easier standing it. Oh, thinking about the breath first did make a difference. And it was a little disconcerting that we're doing the opposite of how we've been practicing that, the inhale and the stretching out to either side. But
Get used to that, Bill.
Yeah,
I'm being disconcerted or?
No, doing things in opposite ways.
Yeah, I'm on to some of your tricks, David.
So this week, I want you to experiment with the movements 1 through 5 in doing this. And I suggest you make your movements small, so you can do the opening and closing with your breath and your arms. And in movement 1, don't lift your hands too high, because if you lift them too high, then the amount that your arms are bending and stretching is greater. In movement 2, don't bend so low, and maybe you're going to have your arms go out from your solar plexus, and maybe they're not going to go all the way to the side. In movement 3, you're getting the point already. In movement 4, simply don't go up as high or have your hands go too low. Just reduce the size of your movements. In other words, reduce the length of bending and stretching. And then slowly, as you can get your breath to go through your arms, start bringing the bending and stretching of your arms back to the way that you were originally doing it. So, any questions about that?
So if we were doing 10-second or 30-second breathing, if we're in movement 3, it would take us a full minute to go all the way around.
Yes. That's correct.
Yeah. What should we be striving for? I mean, I'm way faster than any 30 than taking a minute to go around.
Of course. You should be doing what you can do. I don't think there is no random figure that is necessarily appropriate for everyone. So what I would say is to just sit and practice some breathing first and see where your breath is. Get a sense of where you can breathe and be able to maintain it. In trying to slow my breath down, I found in practicing that I could make myself breathless and have to go faster in order not to run out of breath. So you have to find what's appropriate for you, not just it has to be this length. Yes, it would be nice to end up with a 30-second breath. That'd be great. But if you can work it at a 10-second breath or work towards a 10-second breath, that would be great. So I don't think it isn't a matter of some figure you have to achieve right now. You have to do what you can do and gradually increase it over time. And it does take a long time. It's not, increasing the length of your breath is not something that happens rapidly. Happens slowly.
To have, I found myself sort of forcing to start the breath just a split second before I started the hand movement to have a sense of the breath driving that. But I don't know if that was a trick I was playing with myself or if that should actually be sort of simultaneous. But to have the mind intent of having the breath lead the
Really?
movement.
Yeah, you do really want it eventually to be simultaneous. That's kind of an interesting thing, because what that says to me is that you are developing that link between the breath and the movement, and you needed to sort of jump start it was what it sounds like to me. And that's fine. I can understand that as a stage of development, but eventually you want it to be simultaneous. Other thoughts or questions?
There are cell phone apps that guide the rapidity of breathing. That might be a help.
I'm not.
I mean, I have one that goes, a multicolor thing, and starburst, and then and you can set it for however fast you want, and then it gradually gets up to that over a period of minutes.
Well, that's interesting. If that works for you, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use it all the time, but occasionally I want
Yeah. Okay.
So when we're practicing this week, should we be using that breathing pattern in 3 that we just used?
Sure. Or you can do the other.
Oh, okay.
You can do either. Actually, eventually there really are 2 primary ways of doing 3. And one of them is focused principally on bringing fresh energy into the liver and the spleen. And the other is focused principally on actually cleansing the liver and the spleen. So it's kind of a matter of what is your intention. And it's not really something you have to get into at the moment. I would recommend that if you're simply trying to work on aligning the breath and the movement, that doing the exhale at 3 and 9 is a little easier than doing it in the way that we started doing it. But eventually you want to be able to do either one. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
to.
Have fun with a different practice this week.
Good class, good class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was so much information, I can hardly catch my breath.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So,
I haven't reset this.
oh,
It's the breathe in. It's the breathe out. And then you can set it to
Any
go
length?
faster or slower or length, yeah.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah,
It's
Cool.
yeah.
That's kind of nice to look at.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill.
Have a good week.
Thank you, you too. So, where are you guys?
What was it, 2 weeks ago? We're working on the C-spine,
Oh, yeah.
Secret, yeah.
C-spine and going through the form without hands.
So, were you able to do any of that this week, Joanne?
Very little. I just found this class particularly helpful in terms of my challenge for my right leg. Because I'm not feeling the energy flow in there. And actually this week I've had increased pain in my foot and in my big toe. I know. But as you were talking today, I think and you were also talking about Master Joe, being able to cure his varicose veins with Tai Chi. And that's kind of been ruminating and, thinking about that as well. And I think one of the challenges on my right leg is that both I have I have fallen on that knee quite badly. I have an old injury on that knee, and the varicose veins seem to hurt there. I've also have an old injury in that that right ankle that never healed correctly. And so it affects the ankle and the muscle on the top of the foot. I mean, I turned my foot in, I had a job, I was working catering. So I ended up walking on it the day after I turned it. So
Oh,
that's why it's never cured. It never really healed, but I felt like what we just did, I could really kind of feel something there that I haven't been able to in terms of that breathing. And that really concentration on that. That's where the pain is in my body, right?
yeah.
How do I do that? So no, I have not been able to really do the form. I'm also challenged by a meeting that I had to make for 10:30, and the construction's still going on out here. And there's now a little, well, I stopped just as I started talking, but there's 3 vehicles moving up and down the street, 3 heavy vehicles moving up and down the street. So it's just very distracting.
Yeah.
Putting in pipes. But anyway, yeah. So I can stay on for a few more minutes, but then I need to leave. But I feel like this class has been, the God's class has been very, very helpful. And I think helpful for moving into the form as well.
Yeah. So have you found postures where you're not clear or you have difficulty doing the C curve?
Yeah. I find single whip is difficult, which happens a lot. I think a lot of the postures where you're moving into a bow stance tend to be easier.
Mhm.
I don't know why. And then any posture, like any of the kicks, is like a no. Any of the things that we don't do very often, like gargoyles, not really. So I think, yeah, the easiest ones are the ones like brush knee,
Yeah.
pulse monkey.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, I find those to be just much easier, clearer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's an easier stance to work with.
I think, the postures that have less parts, it's easier. It's easier if there's, kind of like 1, 2, like
Yeah.
brush knee, you know what I mean? Like you're moving into it, then you're doing it. But like single whip where you're going back and forth, I kind of played around like, well, do you do a C curve every time, you know, each part, or like one long C curve?
Mm.
Yeah, so I don't have answers there. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is, I think, you know, a hard one because of the fact that you have really two stages of the movement,
Right.
except when you get to the short one. But so when, let's see. So when you've gotten to here, obviously you're straightened.
Mm-hmm.
And here, you're actually going into a bend and then straightening the C curve. And the difficult part is that you need to bend again as you reset that foot so that you can straighten the final part.
Okay.
And that would be the simple way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things that makes it harder in the form is because you're moving and your head, you know, your head should be doing the crane's neck.
Mhm.
That really changes the balance points for a lot of things. You know, so doing that transition there in single whip for the second bend, you know, I find everything feels thrown off when you try and add that C curve in there. And I don't know if, you know, I'm overdoing
Well,
the
what it-
head part and it without enough tuck to
yes,
balance the weight.
that's what it looks to me like.
Okay.
Mm. Mhm.
That's, and you know, and it's so much smaller
Yeah.
here that when you're going into that one, into this step here, this is pretty small. I mean, I've got a little tuck, but it's not very big. And you don't want to do the head too much because that immediately starts to, so you have to really find how you can condense it, make it
Mhm.
smaller.
Mhm. Okay.
And not lose the tuck of the pelvis is really important.
Hmm.
And that is the harder part of that. Certainly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Feel better?
Sorta. When it feels like I have more tuck of the pelvis, it feels like I'm doing less energetically with my spine and like just relaxing all the stuff that touches the spine to make that happen. You know what I mean? You know, because like,
Yep.
I mean, there's so much muscles in the lower backs and the glutes and the hips.
Right.
That
Right.
if that's tight, you really can't tuck or open the spine up.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the challenges I've had trying to do this is when I focus on doing the C-spine in the form, it feels like there's less energy moving. Although,
I think it's a stage.
yeah,
I think it's just a matter of working through
Mm.
making that comfortable.
okay.
And
Mhm.
that's what we're doing. You know, sometimes I feel that the C curve in the form is so small that it's really a matter of intent almost and not very much physicality.
Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not getting, not getting into the feeling that you have to do a lot,
Yeah.
but
Mm.
you want that spine to bend and straighten, but it doesn't have to be huge.
Okay.
It may be very, very small, and it may be really, really having the intent that that's happening.
Okay.
Yep. I think it's a matter of, like with the breathing, of being able to forget it. Right? Of being able to not go, oh, hind neck, oh, sacrum, it's just kind of getting it into that flow. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, I need to leave you. I will check the recording for any other lessons from this class.
Okay.
Okay.
I will join you next week. Thank you. Good
Thank
class.
you.
Bye, Joanne. Good seeing you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here.
Okay. Because like for grasping sparrow's tail, you should bend and straighten, but then
Bend,
have another bend, right?
absolutely.
And so this bends, I've been really finding, the less of a weight shift onto to get 100% here, and mostly the weight is getting there because you're tucking,
Ah, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay.
Good.
And so where, I guess you can play with like what point in the back is the midpoint? Does that change in the postures? Or should you always
I don't-
always be, or is that too?
I think it's always relatively the same.
Okay,
I don't have a sense of that
okay,
having any significant shift.
okay,
Not that it may be slightly different, but
okay,
no, I wouldn't get hooked into that.
okay.
And
I know. The other thing I was thinking about this week was, I know there's so much to practice. We probably should still be doing the double arm walk that we were doing before we started GOTS.
Well, if you have
If
time.
you have time, okay,
I wouldn't worry too much about that,
okay,
actually. Because now that we've gone into God's, I think that's asking a lot.
okay, yeah.
I don't know how much time you have to.
Yeah, I've mostly been trying to just keep up with GOTS
Yeah,
and, keep stuff alive in the form and bring some of this stuff in.
yeah, I think that's, exactly where you should be, because I wouldn't worry about the double arm too much at this point. We can always go back to that.
Okay,
That's when you really get into that, it's kind of interesting. I'm doing an 8 gates class
mm-hmm,
now. We're up to class 28. I mean, it's I'm really in that particular class. I'm really trying to really go through some of the internal stuff, all of that, and it's turning out to be an extensive training. It's not. There's a lot there.
mm-hmm,
There's a lot there. And you can do everything that we're doing in God's in that.
mm-hmm, right,
So it's just another way of approaching it.
okay,
So I wouldn't worry too much about the double arm at this point.
okay,
Sounds
good.
I think it's more important if you can spend 15 or 20 minutes a day on God's
Okay,
to do that than to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sweet.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
Hang in there.
Yeah. Trying.
Yeah.
How things been for you guys?
They're fine.
Good.
Good. At the moment.
Yeah,
Do anything for the holiday next week?
No. No, nothing at all.
The best thing to do.
Zach's been here for a few days,
Oh, cool.
so that's been fun. But basically, yeah, looks like we're just not gonna do anything for holidays. And we were thinking about going to California the first week in January, but I think we're putting it off to the end of March and see how things are going.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably a good move, you know.
I am still pretty hanky about
Yeah, I
taking
think
any,
rightfully so,
taking any chances.
you know,
Yeah,
I mean, it's still out there, it's still happening, so it hasn't gone away.
no. If people won't get vaccinated, they ain't going to.
That's it. You know, I mean, we're beyond the point that it's ever going away at this point, you know?
Yeah. It's gonna be
I
here.
think there was maybe a very small window for that.
Yeah,
But, you know, it's like the flu now, like it's gonna be here.
it's gonna be around.
But I think in time we'll be better at treating it and, you know,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, is this Pfizer pill?
I haven't read or heard much about it yet, so I don't know.
Yeah,
We're not doing it at the hospital, so. There's more to come on that, but,
yeah.
you know. It's hopeful that there's, you know, more stuff coming out. So.
Good.
Well, enjoy Zach being around. See you next
Thanks.
week.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Hope you find another tenant easily.
Well, I got a guy who called me. I put up, you know, an advertisement, but I don't know what's wrong with people, David. You know, it's like, yeah, I've had 2 interactions with him so far, and I like kind of have a little bit of a hesitation, and I'm feeling I should just follow my gut if I'm already like, whoa, I don't know, you know, before he gets in there.
I strongly advise following that.
Yeah. You know, someone called, like, I don't know. I put the advertisement up, and if I was responding to an advertisement, you know, calls, they're like, hey, David, saw your thing on Facebook or Craigslist. You know, my name's Adam. I'm interested in renting the spot. It's a good time to talk. Can I get a little more information, right?
Yeah,
I get a call from him. Yeah, can I get some info about the place? Hey, I'm Adam. Who am I talking to? You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, my name's Tyler. I'd like to move in for 2 years. Great. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Tyler. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm concerned that you want to move in for 2 years sight unseen without even asking me what my name is. Like,
yeah.
what? You know, like, I don't know.
You know, we were using a site to do, you know, reference on people,
Yeah.
financial and legal. And it worked really well for the first couple of times we used it. And then recently it's been shit. They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So I've been looking for there are several other sites that will do that.
Yeah. So the other roommate who's in there, Alex, he works for the courthouse doing the immigration cases. So he does a lot of like, you know, background checks and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I was talking to him about this. He said what a lot of those background checks do is they are tapping into the FBI database. And the FBI database is based on like federal stuff. And it may or may not have local municipality or state level stuff going on,
Yeah,
which is, you know.
Yeah.
So like, you know, person's like a terrorist, right? Or like under a drug watch or something, like, yeah, you know, they're in there. If they're a sex offender, it'll come up. But, you know, if they have like local stuff with the state, it's probably not gonna come up. So a lot of
have
those
any
background checks are not.
recommendations?
What's that?
Do you have any recommendations?
No, he said, no, it's, you know, even for a state organization like himself, where they are actually, you know,
weighing people's immigration cases to see if they need to be deported or not, they have a hard time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of like investigation on their part. You know, it seemed like, oh, this person lived in, you know, Manchester, Connecticut, like calling Manchester's town hall and, you know.
Yeah.
doing
Well,
a
I
lot
think
of
that's
legwork, so,
important to call, to get references and to call
Yeah.
them,
so-
call their work.
Right,
You know, do they really have a job? Do they really make this much money?
Right. Well, so this guy who called up, he's like, yeah, like I'm a day trader. Like I'm just gonna, you know, be in my room, whatever. And I was like, day trader. So like you either have a lot of money or you got no money. Like,
And that could change real fast.
right. I was like, I don't know about that. That's like not a job. It's like a hobby people do, right? Like, so might be better off with no one day.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, anywho,
Hang in there.